I think in today's society too, with like social media and everybody projecting such perfection onto what everyone feels like their life is supposed to look like, then you have a lot of like guilt. Am I even doing this right? Have I even like done it correctly? Could I also do this in my personal life too, right? Could like I make better use of my time? And that would ultimately help me financially in a bigger picture. And the answer honestly is yes, right? Wouldn't you agree? Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Financial Mastery Simplified, where we are trying to take anything that touches the financial space and just kind of simplify it and make it where you can master your life financially. I'm your host, Jax or Jacqueline Kreider, and today we have Miss Melissa on the show with us. She is a dear friend and she owns a virtual assistant company and is really the master at trying to take things where you feel like you have to do it all and just make it so that that's not the case, right? And she personally had to deal with some of that, and so she'll kind of share a story. So welcome, Melissa. You want to tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and why you're excited to be on the show today?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. And yes, as the owner of a virtual assistant services company, I spend a lot of time talking about, outsourcing and delegating, but really bringing that into a broader picture, which I think we can explore today, is really, it's about getting clear on what are your highest priorities and what are the most important things that you need to be doing every day. And we can certainly talk about that from a personal level and a professional level, getting clear on the things that really light you up and energize you, because that is the type of energy that we want to be in when it comes to creating and building our lives, including certainly improving our financial lives. And then taking a look at, what do we do with everything else? Because, in the world of Marie Kondo, which if anybody's, not familiar, that's the woman who talks about sparking joy. Like, what do we do with the things that just don't spark joy? And then that's where I come in and talk about too, what are some things that we can just eliminate? What are some things we can delegate? What can we systematize and just make easier? So I touch on all of those things, but just to kind of fill everybody in on kind of my background and where I've come from, I started my virtual assistant services business in 2012. So at the time of this recording, I'm coming up on my 12-year anniversary in business, which is very, very exciting. So I'm certainly happy to share with you as we're talking today about how my business has evolved over time in the relation to how I spend my time and what that looks like financially, and also sharing about, what are some things that we've helped clients achieve? What are some things that, you who are listening, maybe there's some shifts that you can make in your life where it relates to investing in getting help in very specific and very certain areas of your life so that you're able to grow and expand and ultimately reap financial rewards as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of times, people, I joke all the time, but this is what happens, right? So we get all the way through our childhood, sort of, right? And then we turn 18. And I think in a weird way, some people expect like this magical rock to fall out of the sky and drop on our brains and just give us all the details of what we, how we need to live in our financial life. And that just doesn't happen, unfortunately. And so then we spend a fair bit of time kind of tripping over ourselves, trying to figure it out, trying to piecemeal it together. And part of the reason that I tried to create this podcast and tried to shift where my mortgage business is not just focused solely on helping people get that really big ticket item, accomplished and checked off their sort of bucket list, if you will, but also kind of help them down the path, is because that is how it feels. It feels super disjointed. And yeah, you are just always trying to evolve, but like, how do you evolve and how do you figure out like how you should be evolving, right? Like, is there a right way, so to speak, of what the evolve looks like? Because I think in today's society too, with like social media and everybody projecting such perfection onto what everyone feels like their life is supposed to look like, then you have a lot of like guilt. Am I even doing this right? Have I even like done it correctly? And that's difficult and that's hard. And I think that's awesome that you touched on this, because a lot of times people do discount how important it is to kind of take a step back. Okay, so like let's figure out, where do I want to go? What do I want to do, right? And it was super eye-opening for me on my business side, and then also that sort of parlayed into my personal side when I took a minute to step back and make a list of all the different tasks that I do in my business, and then saying, okay, out of these tasks, which ones are like super important to me, right? Like which are the ones that like, they're kind of my babies. I actually really like to do them. I don't want to give that up. And then all the way down to the ones that I'm like, man, if I could get rid of this, if I could not do this ever again, that would be amazing. And then that kind of made me think like, man, could I also do this in my personal life too, right? Could like I make better use of my time? And that would ultimately help me financially in a bigger picture. And the answer honestly is yes, right? Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, absolutely. 100%. It's interesting that you went all the way back to when we turned 18, and there's so much pressure at that time to choose a career path, which now we know, especially as we've gotten older, you're going to have many different career paths. Most people are going to have many different career paths. So I remember that stage of, being a young adult and, even from the terms of finances, being responsible, getting a job, paying your bills. And then you can find yourself like me in a corporate role that ultimately just wasn't a good fit for me anymore. So then there's also that transition of, do I find a new job? Do I start a business? Where do I end up? So I can certainly relate to that transition as well, from going from an employee to a business owner and then to, leading a team. And certainly my personal life has evolved and changed during that time too. I mean, I have a 9-year-old daughter. And so there's also that decision to be made of, when do I want to be working? What hours are protected? And what am I doing with those hours as well? Because I'm sure that my daughter doesn't want to just live with a mom who's just, lather, rinse, repeat, where, we're doing the laundry and we're cleaning the house and, we're mowing the lawn and, get up the next day and do the same thing. We all only have 24 hours in the day. It's a matter of how are we spending them? And are there things that to your point, don't bring us joy? Or is it more important that we make it to the soccer game rather than, fold that load of laundry that's been sitting in the dryer? It's all about choices and figuring out, what is the best thing for us at this time.
Absolutely. Well, and I think a lot of people discount that does shift over time too. Like I joke, like anytime I kind of talk to or mentor a young adult, I always tell them, hey, you might be a baby adult. That's kind of like what I call it, right? Like kind of in your baby stages of adulthood. That's a perfect way to
describe it. You're figuring out all the things just like when you were a baby.
Right. But I always tell them, just so we're clear, if any older adult tells you that they have it all figured out, they're lying. Okay. Because none of us have it completely figured out. And if they tell you that, again, they're full of crap. Like that's just not true. I'm trying to still figure out what I want to do when I grow up. I joke around about that all the time because it's the truth. Like you evolve and you change and what you want changes. And I think a lot of times there also is a lot of guilt surrounding that the shifts do happen. Right. But it's a part of natural good growth is, shifting and making realizations and being able, and I actually think that the younger generation has us more figured out than the older generation in being a lot more true to themselves. Like the more interaction I've had with kind of like Gen Z. And for those of you who don't know me or my personal background, I'm kind of almost millennial Gen Xer. I like kind of ride the cusp. I'm like what they technically call a Zennial. So I kind of ride both sides of the fence there. But we were not really taught to find ourselves. It was like, you just do, this is what you do. You go out there, you get your college degree, you find your job and you work until you die. Okay. It's going to be great. And you're like, wonderful.
Yes. You go to college and you get hired at a company, a good company, and you stay there and you work until you reach retirement age, and then you enjoy the rest of your life.
Right. Well, and then again at that point, like, and I'm kind of a nerd. Like I always like to be learning, and I'm like, so then what? Like you just literally sit around until your brain rots out. I'm confused. So I think the younger generation does have this more unlock than we do about learning to find yourself and asking yourself hard questions and whatever. But a lot of that does go into finance stuff as well, because your priorities will shift with finances over time too, and what you spend money on, right? Like I laugh all the time. My stepdaughters, they will spend money until they're blue in the face on like DoorDash and Uber. And I am old school. I'm like, heck no, I'm going to drive there myself and get it.
Once those fees show up in your cart, I'm like, oh man, I know. That's a lot.
I know. I like literally like it makes me want to throw up, but it's valuable for them and they find it a valuable use of their time. So then they can prioritize something else. So again, to each their own, which is why I sort of am always promoting the biggest factor in anything financial is figuring out yourself. figuring out what you need, how you need it, what it looks like, right? And the delicate balance between burnout. Because like to your point about learning how to offload, and like that's one of the things you do in the virtual assistant world for businesses specifically, is trying to help them avoid burnout. Because as a small business owner, and even in our regular lives, like we feel like we have to do everything. It all falls to me. I got to handle all of it. And it's not true.
Yes. Yeah, I highly agree with you. And, when I think about the way that my business has evolved over time, certainly my financial position has changed over time as well. So when I first started my business in 2012, all the way through about mid 2018, so there was about a 6-year period of time where I was a solopreneur. I did all the things myself. And so I was, certainly working with clients as a virtual assistant. I was supporting them and helping them grow their businesses. I was doing all the behind the scenes work that inevitably needed to be done in my business, or I wasn't, which I can share more about in a second. I think that people will be familiar with that feast and famine cycle that we find ourselves in. But the problem is that in that business model and doing all the things myself, I was significantly blocking more income from coming in because I could only I was trapped in that trading dollars for hours cycle of I could only earn as much as I could work, no matter how I priced my services or what my packages look like, or even if I maybe raise my prices every year, or if that's you and you're in a job and you receive a raise every year, there was only so much that you can grow under that model. And so it wasn't until I really started to build a team that I was able to really maximize a lot of that revenue and ultimately profitability, which is, my financial freedom and my financial growth as well. And through that process, it really means getting clear on what are the most important things that I need to be doing as the owner of my company. And so going back to the feast and famine cycle, I think that was one of the first things that alleviated my personal, financial situation was when I was, head down and just working and working and working in my business or, quote unquote job, because I was supporting my clients, then I was ignoring all the other things over here, like, really growing my business or say doing any marketing or sales. So then when I come up for air after doing all this client work for a period of time, then I turn around and there's no other opportunities that are out there. And I need to go out and I need to stop what I'm doing. I need to bring in more business, or I need to go out there and look for more opportunities. If that's you in a job, or it's maybe that looks like, nurturing your network so that if for ever any reason you can or have to change jobs, who are you building relationships with where you're going to have options one day when you stop and look up and you take a breath. And so I think that having that team and being able to support the clients, but also to keep focused on bigger picture opportunities that are out there, that really helped me avoid that feast and famine cycle. And I enjoy a much more steady income today, if you will, when I have all these things in place and there's that balance there.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I mean, I think it's hard though. It's hard, first of all, to recognize and realize that whether it's your professional or your personal life, that you need the help. And then two, for those of you who are like me, who are recovering control freaks, you think, well, nobody is ever going to be able to do it as good as I do it. And the truth of the matter is that's not necessarily true. They may be able to do it as good as you or differently than you, but equally as good, especially depending on who you're hiring and what that all looks like, et cetera, to do the tasks. But the truth of the matter is everybody is going to lead to burnout or feast and famine, what you call it. But I mean, that ultimately feast and famine will also lead to burnout, right? Because it's just
100%. It's very stressful
roller coaster.
Stay tuned. We'll be back right after this message from our sponsors.
Welcome to Financial Mastery Simplified, your go-to podcast for making smart money decisions. We break down complex financial topics into easy-to-understand advice you can use every day. Our experts cover everything from budgeting and saving to investing and retirement planning. We give you the tools to take control of your money and build the future you want. With Financial Mastery Simplified, you'll feel informed and empowered to make the best choices for your financial health. Tune in to Financial Mastery Simplified on your favorite podcast platform. Start your journey to financial confidence today. Welcome to House U, where we believe in the power of education. At House U, we're more than just a brand. We're your partner in home ownership, dedicated to educating, equipping, and empowering you every step of the way. Education is at the heart of everything we do. We offer comprehensive resources designed to make home ownership simple and accessible for all. From understanding mortgage options to mastering home maintenance, House U provides the knowledge you need to make informed decisions with confidence. We host workshops and seminars, bringing together experts and community members to share insights and build a stronger, more informed community. Because when you're educated, you're empowered. House U, home ownership made simple for all. Visit our website or contact us today to start your journey with House U. Empower yourself with knowledge and embrace the joy of home ownership.
Thanks for your patience. Now back to our conversation.
I love that you brought up, being a control freak, because I feel like I'm a control freak as well. And I feel like so many people can relate to that. Like, I grew up hearing, if you want it done right, you do it yourself.
Do it yourself, absolutely.
I come from a wonderful family who is full of DIYers. They take a lot of pride in what they do, and we don't hire other people to do things for us. So it's really kind of comical, like the business that I've found myself in, because I'm encouraging people to delegate and offload all the time. But I always say you can start small. This doesn't mean that wherever you're at, if you're owning a business and you need to run out and hire a full-time executive assistant, or, if you are working on your corporate career and you're just going to go out and hire a house manager, like, back up for a second. We can start small. And so to your point with, the control, I'll call them control issues, even though I mean that in a loving way, because I certainly relate to that. Maybe you don't have to start off with the things that you are really good at and you do really well at. Maybe there's enough stuff that we have on our plates. Offload the thing that you hate doing, or that takes you way longer than it should to get done.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Maybe we start like there before we hand over our baby.
I was gonna say my one in my personal world is for sure laundry. I freaking can't stand it. And so either whether it be my spouse or a person, we've hired people to like do laundry, during different seasons and stuff like that in our lives, as it has made sense and not made sense. I hate it. I forget about it. I don't remember, like, all the things, you know what I mean? Like, I just, I can't.
And so how do you feel when that's taken care of for you? Like, that's a perfect example, because does it directly relate to your job? Like, directly? No. But how does that change life for you? When you have somebody who's taking care of laundry, you don't have to think about it. You have to worry about it. It's probably done even better than you could do yourself by somebody who is an expert at laundry and loves it. How does that impact you?
Yeah, for sure. Oh no, it makes my life so much better. It's just like, it's so much less, it's such a weird thing. And for those of you who are listening, who are women, where we work and we have some domestic responsibilities, you know what I mean? And the truth is that we're living in a world where a lot of these domestic responsibilities are shared, but sometimes women are actually pulling on more domestic responsibility than the men, not necessarily because the men are not willing to help, but either the men don't know how to help, or they're not being made aware of like all the things that are happening in the background that they're not seeing, right? Like, my husband sent me this really funny video about this man, and he was like, honey, look, this table is magical. Whatever I leave on it, the next day, all the things disappear off of it.
I have
and
seen
she's like
this
looking
video.
at him like, are you kidding me? Like, what? No, it's me. I'm cleaning the things off of the table, right? Like, you know what I mean? And it's just like, there's a really cool book. I don't know if you've ever read it, called Fair Play.
I have read this. Yes.
You've read that book? Yeah. And it's like, it's like learning that, a lot of times, and that's part of the problem too, that's creating stresses in our marriages and things like that, and our relationships with our significant others, is because there's this disconnect of even what's happening and figuring that out. And so not only do you have to get on the same page with your partner or spouse if you have one, but you also need to determine maybe what neither one of you are particularly great at. Like,
Yes.
maybe neither one of us are particularly great at this. And so we need to prioritize that this needs to be handled. And how much is this going to cost? We need to add it into our budget, right? So that we can offload it. Because you're right. And I think a lot of us think we're great at everything. And I'll just be real here. If you think you're great at everything, I promise you're not. You should maybe look at yourself in the mirror for a minute, because I promise you're not great at everything. It's just not possible, right? You can be pretty good at a lot of things, like, right, that old adage, jack of all trades and master of none, but like you can't be perfect at all the things, I promise.
100%. Yes. And the other thing is to, talking about fair play, and even just starting with something simple as laundry and getting that off your plate. The mental load is real. And if you think that you can successfully run your business or do your job well when you are constantly running in the background all the things that have to get done, that taps a lot of your energy, and that does ultimately impact your results, whatever those results might look like for you and your particular career.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Well, and I mean, like I said, I think a lot of people, and let's speak to this, because a lot of people are listening to this saying, well, I can't afford to hire an assistant, hire somebody to deal with laundry, hire, maybe like a maid or something like that, or somebody to do meal prep or whatever it is, right, that you're trying to offload that you absolutely hate, whatever that looks like. The truth is if you actually really sit down and prioritize, somebody said to me one time, you literally can afford anything if it's really important to you. It's like it's like whatever it is, it's like most important to you. You somehow figure out how to afford that thing. So then it just becomes a question of priorities, right?
Yes.
Of like what it is on the priority list as far as that goes.
Well, that's the awesome thing too, is you can be very budget conscious and financially responsible and still be able to offload and outsource and delegate the things that don't light you up, that don't bring you joy, that don't ultimately add to your life in some positive way. And so to your point, it can be starting small. Like we started talking about this concept of starting small. I love how you brought up fair play. So we could take a look at, who can help me with some of these things, even if we're looking at home. Maybe there are kids who have a certain age that they can learn how to help with laundry. These are life skills.
Absolutely.
That people need to have. And so maybe starting there, maybe you have a 10-year-old kid who would love to do laundry for a couple of bucks a week, and they take a lot of pride in that responsibility. I mean, starting there, or even taking a look at, at a work example, outsourcing something as small as maybe your LinkedIn, maybe investing in having somebody create a LinkedIn post a week for you just to keep your visibility consistent and your social media presence consistent and boost your visibility and credibility. Maybe it's just starting there rather than let it go dormant for 6 months until you magically find time to start creating some content for yourself. It's really simple to start with something very small and continue to build from there. We don't have to go from, again, operating solo to having a full team of managers running our day-to-day life. There's definitely steps in between.
Sure.
Certainly I know that for me, when I was running my business as a solopreneur, I depended on every dollar that came in order to support my family and pay my bills. And so when I started working with a business coach at that time who said, hey, if you want to grow, you have to seriously look at leveraging your time and, hiring a team to help you with all of this. I was like, how am I going to afford that? And really, ultimately, what happened was I brought in new business. So I brought in a couple more clients, a couple more projects that I know that I personally didn't have the capacity to take on. But what I did was I took 100% of those funds. I gave myself a temporary, this is the key word, this is not somewhere you should stay forever, a temporary hiring freeze or a temporary salary freeze. That's the word I'm looking for. A temporary salary freeze so that I knew that I had the money that I needed to pay my bills. But then 100% of new funds that came in, I reinvested those funds into building the team. And I just kept doing that until ultimately I got to a point where I was able to continue to increase my salary and increase my income, all while paying the team, and things started to balance out in that regard. And I was able to spend much more of my time doing business development and really building the business, while the team was there to help with a lot of the client work that was coming in. And so, if you have a corporate career where maybe you're, I know there's a lot of different salary structures out there, but is there something that you can apply from that concept where maybe instead of going out and increasing, some of your spending at home when you get a raise, maybe it's, let's take this and let's invest in a housekeeper once a month, rather than, taking that money and spending it on me, or maybe just letting that money absorb into our budget and kind of vanish wherever it happens to vanish. Maybe it's being intentional of, I'm receiving this bonus this year, or I'm receiving this raise this year. I want to take a portion of that and invest it in X, which will ultimately free up some of my time and energy.
Well, and I like what you were saying about intentionality, because I think the truth is, from the word go, intentionality is going to be what is going to make the biggest difference in general in anything when it comes to finances. Because the truth is, yes, you're going to learn lessons along the way. Yes, you're going to trip and fall some along the way, but you need to be intentional about where you're headed and what you would like that to look like. And yes, this can shift, and yes, this can change, but it is the intentionality that will continue to fuel you forward and get you to where you want to be. If you have no plan, if you have no thought process of what this should look like, what you want your priorities to be, then how in the world do you expect the universe, the higher power, whoever it is you believe in, et cetera, to be able to help fulfill that? Or even others around you, right? The people who are in your cheering corner, who do want to help you, who do want to further you. Like, if they don't know where you're going, then like, how can they help? Right? I mean, you can't even raise your hand at that point and say, I need help, because they're going to say, well, great. How? Like, that doesn't even translate. So you do have to get really, really clear about what it is you want, what your priorities need to look like. And again, if you can't necessarily afford it immediately, what would you like to take off your plate, right? And then you start baby steps small. Okay, this is the little one that I can afford. Maybe it's not the one I'd like to afford, but it's what I can afford. And then I'm just going to keep moving that needle up that chain. I've been the same. Like, I'm a very high functioning individual. I'm very capable. I came from a very long line of DIYers like you, where my parents are in their 70s and they still are doing electrical projects at their house as we speak for their kitchen remodel. And I'm like, really?
That sounds so relatable to me.
What? I'm like, what in the world? And it's not that they're not good at it, but at some point in time, right? Like, how do you want to spend your time? And are you, are you just exhausting yourself? And yeah, there's going to be periods of your life where you might have to do that, and you might have to get really skinny, right? So you can get to the next phase. Like what you were saying, you saved money intentionally with the thought that, okay, now I'm going to take this money and I'm going to allow this money that's going to flow in from here to here, right? This period of time, this little chunk of time, to fuel my bigger purpose. But when you don't have a clue and you don't have a plan and you don't know kind of what your end goal looks like, then it's going to fall apart. I mean, I told my girls, they jokingly said, I have 3 stepdaughters. They're all adults now. And literally, they called them life lessons with Jacqueline. Every time we were in the car, we talked about money. We talked about getting places intentionally. And I told them, girls, I literally don't care. You could literally like live in a van traveling around the country if like that's your end goal. You could be somebody who works for like sanitation. Like you could be like, like the person who drives a garbage truck. You could be the CEO of a company. None of that will affect my level of appreciation for who you are, right? Or feel like that you are less than. Okay, so just so we're clear. But what I want from you is to get there intentionally. Whatever that looks like, wherever you think you want to be in life, start there, work backwards, figure out what that needs to look like, and sort of plan accordingly. And I did tell them, I'm like, it is going to change. It is going to, move or whatever. But if you don't have any sort of a plan, I promise you're going to fail before you start.
Stay tuned. We'll be back right after this message from our sponsors.
Imagine having the power to control your financial destiny, no matter where you start. Welcome to the Financial Mastery Simplified course and resource platform, where financial education is tailored to your unique journey. We cover everything you need, from basic budgeting and saving strategies to advanced investing and retirement planning. Learn at your own pace with lessons that match your level of experience. Whether you're a beginner or looking to enhance your financial knowledge, join our community of learners and benefit from shared insights and expert guidance. The Financial Mastery Simplified Course and Resource Platform equips you with the skills and confidence to take charge of your financial future. Ready to master your finances? Enroll in our courses today at the Financial Mastery Simplified Course and Resource Platform. Start your path to financial independence now.
Hello, and welcome to PBJ Mortgage, where your home ownership dreams become reality. Today, we want to share why choosing PBJ Mortgage is the right choice for your home financing needs. At PBJ Mortgage, we're built on a foundation of values that drive us every day. Our commitment to educate, empathize, and empower our clients sets us apart in the mortgage industry. Our clients are at the heart of everything we do, and their success stories speak volumes. With years of experience, our team possesses in-depth knowledge of the mortgage programs, ensuring you receive expert guidance and the best possible rates. We offer a diverse range of loan options to suit your unique needs, including conventional, FHA, VA, and more. No matter your situation, we've got a solution. At PBJ Mortgage, we pride ourselves on providing personalized service. Our dedicated loan officers are here to guide you every step of the way, making the process as smooth as making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. We understand that time is of the essence, which is why we've streamlined our processes for efficiency and convenience. Transparency and clear communication are paramount. You'll always know where you stand throughout your mortgage journey. Reach out to us today to set up a call to discover your options. If you're ready to make your home ownership dreams a reality, contact PBJ Mortgage today. Let us empower you during this exciting journey. Phone number 4-693-733-107 www.pbjteam.com. Visit our website or give us a call to get started. We look forward to helping you secure your future home. PBJ Mortgage, where home begins.
Thanks for your patience. Now back to our conversation.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And one of the key things as well through all of this is, I grew my business again through building a team was a major part of that. I also followed a system called Profit First, and some people might be familiar with that listening to this. There's a book, Profit First by Mike Holowitz. And for that really gave me a blueprint of here's how to manage your money from a business perspective so that you are setting aside for some savings. You are setting aside for taxes. Here's how much you should be paying yourself. Here's how much is, relevant to, relative to your sales. This is about where you should be at in terms of expenses, because it just gave me that blueprint to spend that money intentionally. And it also gave me that, I don't want to say permission because we don't need permission slips, but also it was like, okay, about a third of what you're bringing in, that should be expenses for running the business. So taking a look at what do I want those expenses to be and what's important for me in terms of, maybe systems that, and different apps and tools that make my life easier to run and my business easier to run as well. And I'm sure, in even the personal world, which I'm sure Jacqueline, you can speak to, having using some of those blueprints as guides for being intentional with your money. And that can be revealing as well in terms of what you might be able to outsource or delegate first.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think a lot of times people just, like I said, they aren't being intentional. It's what I see a lot of times on why, like when people come to us, and of course, again, for those of you who don't know, my main job is mortgage. That is what I've done for over 20 years. I've worked in a lot of aspects of the financial space, including having a law degree, including doing property and casualty insurance, so like homeowners and automobile insurance, including dealing with life insurance. I mean, I've done all these things in the financial space, but my main thing is, of course, this huge transaction. The biggest financial transaction you'll ever deal with is what I do for a living. And what we see a lot of times is people know that they want to buy a house, but then they haven't thought this all the way through, right? And they either haven't talked to a professional like me to help them figure that out, or come up with some ways that work for them, to get there. But the truth of the matter is, if you want to do any of these big things, like these big goals, like you're not going to just get there by accident. Maybe you end up there on accident with a few things here and there. Maybe some things will kind of fall into your lap. But the truth of the matter is like you said, without a blueprint, without a plan, without a thought process of what that looks like, you're not going to get to where you want to be. You're just not. And it is hugely lacking in general, is I think, and a lot of it honestly is I think we're really distracted. We're a very distracted society, and there's so much information constantly bombarding you. Well, this person said this way. Well, this person said that way, or whatever. Truly, as weird as it sounds, I feel like you need to look within yourself and figure out what resonates the most with you, right?
Yes.
So pick the person that like you're like, okay, that resonates with me. That makes sense to me. And if it doesn't make sense, drown it out. Yes. Because everybody, I mean, my mother has a saying, and it's totally true. Opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one. And I guarantee you somebody is going to say, well, actually, Melissa, you should be running your business this way. Well, Jacqueline, you should be running your business that way. Well, that's great, right? But what does it look like for me? Is that what resonates with me? Is that what makes sense for me? I mean, again, it's like we're talking about. I guarantee you somebody who's listening to this is like, why in the world would she pay for somebody to do her laundry? I love laundry. It's great. And that is awesome. Good for you. I'm glad that you love laundry, baby. I hate it, but I'm glad that you love it.
Yes.
And so that's obviously not your thing. Like, that's not the thing that you hate. And there is somebody who's passionate about that like you. In fact, if you're listening to this and you love laundry, maybe this is your cue to start a side laundry business and start doing other people because you love it so much, right?
Yes.
Or you never know.
Yes. Exactly. And with intentionality, of course, we're talking about this through the lens of finances and having a plan and being clear. That also translates on the delegation side of things as well, because there are times that, I'll use my company as an example. We'll have a client who is, maybe I'll just pull this out as an example. Maybe this client's a realtor, a real estate agent. And they are running around and they are seeing clients and taking them to showings and writing offers and negotiating and doing all the things that is essential to them earning an income, right?
Sure.
But then there's just plenty of things, just like anybody else, that need to be outsourced and delegated. So let's say they decide to, outsource their marketing so that they themselves are not spending whatever time and energy they have left after serving their clients well in marketing, so that they continue to bring in more business and increase their sales and things like that. Maybe they decide to take that step of outsourcing some of their marketing. If they're not intentional with what are their expectations, what are their goals with bringing in somebody to do their marketing, what does success look like in terms of outsourcing your marketing? And the same thing, on the personal side of things, if you are hiring a housekeeper, what specifically do you need that housekeeper to do for you with the time that they're going to be in their home? I think it's also being clear on the direction that you're giving so that you get the support that you need, because people aren't mind readers.
That's
the way that I would market my business might not be the way that you want your business marketed. Right. And that's fine. Maybe there are things in your home that you care a lot more about to be clean than others. Maybe you don't really worry so much about the dusting, and, maybe cleaning the shower is a much higher priority with their time. I think it's also being intentional about what are you asking for? Are you asking for what you need? Because you could say, well, I hired a housekeeper once and, I felt like they really didn't do a very good job. There were still, there were like these nooks and crannies that I could see some cobwebs, or, that light fixture in my entryway, that was still dirty. It didn't work out. It's also having that conversation so that you get what you want. So you're investing the dollars and also setting the expectations that everybody is clear on. This is what would make the biggest difference to me. This is what I need.
Yep, absolutely. Well, and I think a lot of people definitely do not think that through. Because we're not intentional and we don't take the time. I mean, I learned when I was a manager that it was super important for me to be able to lay out what my expectations were and what I needed from those people, because whether you're managing somebody on like a really small job, like doing the laundry, or all the way up, you need to have an understanding of what that looks like for you. So like, for instance, since we've used a laundry example a few times, let me kind of explain when I talked to the person who did my laundry, what that looked like. So number one, we have some sensitivity in my household to perfumes and things like that. So they had to use basically like a free and clear type product, free of dyes, free of perfumes when they did the laundry, because it would otherwise create problems, right? I preferred things to be hung versus folded. So I had to make sure that I provided the requisite hangers so that the individual could hang the clothes as opposed to folding them, which is the traditional way that they handled it. We also couldn't deal with dryer sheets, so I provided wool dryer balls to be able to allow the laundry individual to use those for the drying stage of the stuff or whatever, right? And so, being really crystal clear about that. And I think a lot of times people just assume, well, they're going to have an understanding, whatever. If you don't have any opinion and you really aren't going to be upset if it's not done a specific way, then I suppose, you can go to that expert if you've hired the right person, and they can, do that, etc. But understand, you'll get much better results the more intentional you can be. You'll get much better results the more knowing yourself and knowing what you need you can be, right? And or also asking them questions to determine, because that's another thing I've learned too, is like when I come to a professional, as opposed to telling them how to do their job, I ask them questions like, okay, what's the best way I can help you so we're on the same page, right? Like, what is this, what does this look like? How can I make sure that we're working in concert to make sure that this is the perfect solution for both of us, right?
Yes. I have a saying, there's a difference between a good service provider and a great service provider. A good service provider will come in and do what you ask them to do and, do a fairly good job at it. Like, no complaints, it works. But I think a great service provider really takes the time to ask the right questions and understand you and what your needs are. They're able to make recommendations and they really become the expert. And that just gives you that next level of service. But I do love how you broke down, from the laundry example, because I think that that's something that everybody can understand and relate to is, taking the time to walk through here's the expectations, or here's what I need. I don't really care how else you do this, but these conditions have to be met because it's a non-negotiable. The allergen-free laundry detergent, that is very important because if that's not used, we're going to be itching all over the place. Not a good time, So it's also bringing somebody in and even just walking through like, here's what I need, here's why, and having those conversations. So, and then ultimately, again, bringing it back to this is the time and money that you are investing in getting help with these things. You're going to get a much better experience and ultimately an ROI when you are clear on, here are my needs, here's the expectations, because then you can also be able to tell, is it working or is it not?
Absolutely. Well, it blows my mind. And honestly, part of the reason that I'm not necessarily the lender for everyone is because I firmly believe, first of all, that I should not be making the ultimate decision for the customer, period. So it's my job to assess what it is, myself and my team to assess what you need, right? Give you some suggestions, recommendations or whatever, but ultimately I want you to choose, right? And not only that, but I want to ensure that when you're coming to me, that I am challenging your viewpoint. Because the truth of the matter is, no matter how many videos you've watched, no matter how much you've read about my subject, no matter how many times people have given you opinions about mortgage in general, you haven't been doing this for 20 years. I have, right?
Yes.
Myself and my team have tons and tons of experience, and we have it for a reason. We have seen tons of things, tons of situations, circumstances, and it's our job to try to protect you from all that noise, right? And to get you what you want and what you need. And you're right. Like, and again, this comes back when it comes to, honestly, I think the whole theme of this is really intentionality. What does this look like for you, right? Drilling it down, picking the things like, this is what I'm intentionally good at. And this is where my focus is going to lie. And these things, I'm going to prioritize them and start pushing them out. This
Yeah.
one, not as important. Push that one out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, sometimes, yes, we get it. There is financial constraints. It's not like it would be ideal if you can make that list and here's my 3 things that I'm amazing at and these 20 I suck at and I want to outload and we can just offload them right away. But sometimes it just doesn't work, right? We just don't have the money.
100%. Yep. Starting. I think it's important. We keep coming back to this, start small, but then keep growing.
Yeah,
I hate the laundry. My kids are stressed out in the morning because they can't find anything to wear. I'm running around trying to get ready for work in the morning and, this is going on. The laundry is going to solve a lot of these issues. Let's invest in laundry. Great. So that goes well for a few months. What else? Like, what's the next level of low-hanging fruit? And just keep attacking it. That can be done on a personal level or a professional level as well. So it's starting where you're at, getting intentional, starting where you're at, and then just continuing to evolve and expand from there.
Right. And before we kind of end this or whatever, I will say that I really liked your idea of sort of thinking outside the box, because I think a lot of people, they're going to listen to this and they're going to think, oh, well, gosh, all they're doing is telling me that I have to spend more money. And right now I don't have that money, right? The economy is hard. It's tight. I'm robbing Peter to pay Paul. I'm putting things on credit cards that I don't want to be on credit cards. She's right, guys. This is a good opportunity for you to find unique ways, bartering. People don't realize that you can barter. Like, that old system of bartering still works. So maybe you don't have a family that you can kind of tap into, that where you can ask your kids to help you or whatever, your spouse, etc. What about your neighbor? Maybe your neighbor loves laundry and you hate it, and you like to prep meals and they hate that, right? Like, there is some bartering that can happen here to sort of alleviate this. So it doesn't always have to be in the box. As far as like, oh, you need to hire this person to do this for you. We're suggesting you to offload some of the things that you aren't your highest and best use, whether it be professionally or personally. However, remind yourself there are other ways to be able to accomplish the same thing, right?
Yeah,
and it's just going to come back to what works for you.
Yes, exactly. And even just thinking about taking this into more of a professional example, I know somebody who is just starting out as a photographer and she needed a website. Well, she found a web designer who also needed new photos for her marketing efforts.
Exactly.
Great. You can go ahead and take photos for me. I'll go ahead and put up, a simple website for you. And it worked out really, really well. They both had needs.
Exactly.
They both had budget constraints. And they were able to make it work, and both parties were really happy with the results. So it's also getting creative as well. But I think the number one thing is, don't be doing all of this yourself.
Yeah.
No matter where you're at, if you are a business owner, if you have a corporate career, if you are a stay-at-home parent, caretaker, you can't do all of it yourself. And what we're looking at here, I think, is the overall arching theme is intentionality. And it's also a quality over quantity. There's only so many hours in the day. How are you spending those hours? And what kind of return would you get financially or, physically, emotionally from getting help with some of these things that you don't enjoy doing?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, yeah. And that's a lot of times what people don't realize either, is that you're right. We only have so many hours in the day. We can only do so many things, right? And give yourself huge amounts of grace, guys. Like, it's not a perfect thing. I mean, I raise my hand. Anybody who listens to the show knows I raise my hand all the time and call myself out, right? That even in this space, even with all the knowledge I have, even with all of the things, right? And I'm a recovering control freak. Like, it's hard for me to let some of those things go. It is. I mean, even the things I don't particularly love, because I'm like, oh my gosh, what if I spend all this money and then they don't even do it right? You know what I mean? And like, there's all of that, kind of fear surrounding it. But sometimes you are going to just have to try. You're going to have to raise your hand and say, okay, hey, I mean, I'm not perfect at this. I need help. But I think that there is a lot of things that can be gained when you're coming into financial mastery, of just mastering yourself and mastering that intentionality, for sure, right? And as we're coming to a close, is there anything else you would like to, say to the audience? Any other offers or things like that you would like to tell them before we kind of sign off?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a great conversation, and I hope that was helpful. No matter where you find yourself at in your stage of life and whatever, your career looks like for you, if you are interested in learning a little bit more about how to work with a virtual assistant, whether you're a professional or entrepreneur, you can check out my website, which is melissaswink.com, melissaswink.com. We have a lot of information on there in terms of, how to work with a virtual assistant. We have a lot of great resources on our blog. I also have a podcast, which is called Make Space for More. Overall arching theme there is growing your business beyond you. Again, whatever stage of business that looks like. And at the top of my website, there is a banner with a free PDF download, 3 steps to scale your business with a virtual assistant. And that's where we can take this topic and really go deeper into helping you get clear on what are your growth potentials, what are your opportunities, what does it look like if you were to get help with some of these other things that don't fit into those priorities right now, and what kind of a return on investment could you expect to get from outsourcing some of these activities for your business. So would love to have you check that out as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and guys, I mean, obviously, my main job is here is PBJ Mortgage, where we are making mortgage simple as making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But I also have been in the process of launching different tools that can also help you, like a free budgeting tool that'll just going to try to help you understand where are we spending our money, right? Like with going back to intentionality, how are we, how are we spending that money? So if you go to fms.tips, you are going to find some different free resources and things like that. So if you are looking for ways to continually become more intentional in your financial life, this is some opportunity for you to be able to expand that intentionality. So we definitely appreciate you listening. Thank you so much, Melissa, for joining us. And
thank you so much. It's been so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And come join us again next Tuesday for another episode of Financial Mastery Simplified.